Good morning, everyone. The local television stations recently have been showing a series with the Discovery Channel on the national parks of the United States. These are not theme parks. They are not like Disney World or SeaWorld. These are parks dedicated to the preservation of the beauty and solitude and grandeur of our country, and are for the benefit of all of the citizens. In times of national stress, for instance, wars, a full 25% of all the people who are in the national parks at that time are returning veterans from the services. They are under tremendous stress and worries about what's happened to them, and the doctors are anxiously trying to get them back to normal. They have found that the peace and solitude and grandeur of national parks have tremendous recuperative powers, and so they have established centers for them so that these men and women can get back to a normal life. The statistics was interesting, and then I thought, in its minuscule way, can we compare Fort Street's open door to a national park? Now, I'm not suggesting I call a president up tomorrow and say, I want you to declare Fort Street a national park. I doubt whether he would answer me. But in its own way, Fort Street's open door does much of the same things that the Park Service does for the service people who need a place of quiet and recuperation. Whenever they come to Fort Street on Thursday mornings, they are from the Cass Corridor area. For those of you who are not familiar with that, it's right north of us, runs between Woodward Avenue and 4th Avenue, almost as far north as Warren Avenue. And it's filled with people who sociological people call helpless and homeless and hungry. And for 35 years, Fort Street has tried to serve that group of people. Feeding people is not a problem. There are a great many agencies in the city of Detroit who do those sort of things. But it's the peace and quiet and recuperation and the way of recovering your senses that happens when they come to Fort Street on Thursday morning. Hundreds of them. Visualize, if you will, what a homeless person faces in the Cass Corridor. Let's take one person, a man, 40 years old perhaps, possibly a veteran, has lost touch with his family or has no family, has no money except the small amount he gets from the government, which will not sustain anybody. He doesn't have a place to sleep. He goes to shelters. Now, in a shelter, you can get in at 6 p.m. in the evening. There are no beds. There's no mattresses. You get a chair to sit on, and you have to leave at 6 a.m. Visualize yourself standing out in Detroit in the middle of winter at 6 o'clock in the morning. You haven't had a meal in 24 hours, and you're cold, and you need something warm, and you've got to find a place to stay, and it takes all day for you to accomplish that because you're fighting for your life. On Thursday mornings, Several hundred of them will come down to 4th Street, right downstairs in the gymnasium. When they walk down those 14 steps off the parking lot, are inside the door, they immediately begin to relax. You can see it in their faces. This is a place of warmth and friendliness and food. They go downstairs and line up at the food table. The line continually moves, and this is a statistic that is true because we've tested it many times. Every 6 seconds, we serve a plate of food to one of these homeless people. They take their food, a cup of coffee or tea or whatever they care to have, go to a table and sit down, sit there and relax for a minute because they're safe and they're warm and they've got a plate of food in front of them. And so there's no shouting or yelling or fighting for things. They all know that food is there, the warmth is there, and the friendliness is there. And they sit and relax until 11 o'clock in the morning. When Paul Winslow asked me to say, "What does 4th Street do for you, Robert?" it took me several days to figure out what he really meant. I take now the privilege of talking for the 35 or 40 volunteers who come down on Thursday mornings to do this work. My son and my daughter-in-law are amongst them. They're here in the sanctuary this morning. They live in the suburbs mostly. Their problem is not hunger or homelessness or anything like that. They get up, drive down and park their cars, come in, and usually they have assigned jobs that they've been working at for a long time. We have people who have volunteered the open door for over 20 years. They know what to do. There's no fuss about it. They get to work, and at 9 a.m., the doors open up, and the people from the outside come in to the warmth and friendliness of 4th Street. And for 2 hours, the volunteers serve them gladly. At 11 a.m., the people from the corridor get up quietly and walk back out into the hostile atmosphere of the Cass corridor. Inside, the volunteers have cleaned up their tables, put them away in the chairs. The floors are being mopped clean, and the volunteers are tired. Standing over a hot steam table for 2 hours serving food, pouring 300 or 400 or 500 cups of coffee, and that period of time is tiring work. And they're all tired when they're finished. But it doesn't bother them, really, because they know that they have done what Jesus had told his disciples: feed the people, clothe them, tend to them when they are ill. The disciples said, "No, we never did any of that for you." And he said, "When you do this to the least of these, my brethren, you have done it for me." And the volunteers know in their own quiet way they have served God again that morning. Thank you.